Face it, you're different. Everyone is. Same goes for your banking needs. That's why Columbia Bank offers an impressive range of checking account solutions specifically designed for, well, you. Looking for a rewards program? Check. High-yield checking? Check. Mobile and online banking? Apple Pay? Check. You'll always find more checking choices for you. So check us out at your local Columbia Bank branch or ColumbiaBankOnline.com. Count on Columbia. Equal housing lender and member FDIC.
I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. Oh, I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristin Walker. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show, after several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me, and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all we promised, we'd be cordial.
Hey everyone, it's Kristin Walker, host of Mental Health News Radio, and I'm on with one of my favorite people, one of my inner, I know that I could call her at 2 a.m. and be a mess, and she would be like a rock of awesomeness, Dr. Linda Martinez-Lewi. Linda, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much, Kristin, for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to this very, very much.
Me too. We just connected the first time we ever talked.
We did.
And I called you in a not a great place around the holidays last year, and you just were on it. And I thank you so much for that, because recovery from narcissistic abuse, especially when it's one of your parents or both of your parents in some cases, it is a journey that can last quite a long time before we figure that out.
That's right, because we keep repeating the old stories of family stories and the vignettes about being a happy family. And of course, none of this is true. And they're mirrors and fantasies about the family, and then other family members go along with it. And very often we're the odd person out.
Oh gosh,
and
yes.
And that person is holding the truth, and they always get punished for it.
Isn't that interesting too, that piece about the truth? Yeah, it is. And how quickly and easily people don't realize how adept these people are at manipulation. They can have someone who absolutely has been in your corner forever manipulated into thinking that you're the one with the problem, even if they have seen the abuse over time. I think what people don't realize is these people are masters at manipulation, absolute masters. And even I can be fooled, you can be fooled, Dr. Robert Hare can be fooled, anyone can still be fooled. It's just a matter of how quickly we kind of figure out what the heck's going on. It's not that we can't be fooled anymore.
That's true. Anyone can be fooled, and most people are fooled almost all the time, unless they're seeking the truth. About themselves, about what really happened to them when they were children, what didn't happen for them, all of that. The covert narcissist weaponizes his life to obtain the maximum ego supplies, and if that involves throwing others under the bus, even in their own family, that is what they do.
I love that you just said weaponized, because I have been saying that I was a galvanized weapon created by my parents. And boy, did I do a good job at being that, until I finally went, wait a minute, who created this weapon? Of course, I take responsibility for my behavior and things I do because I'm an adult person, but it took a long time to come out of that fog of realizing, oh my God, I have been handcrafted to be a weapon for this person.
Mm-hmm. It's so disillusioning, disturbing, distressing. And then we feel so alone with that truth.
Yes, it's extremely difficult to come out of that, but really, for me, I'm finding it's the greatest gift ever to finally having a happy life where you're focused on you instead of everybody else.
Exactly, because that was a survival message that the child received, that particular child. And very often this child is an empath, someone that intuits and feels everything.
Now
they're the ones that know.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You just wrote another book called Discovering Your True Self, Recovering and Healing After the Narcissist. And I know we're going to get into some tactics, some guerrilla warfare tactics, but this book, how is it different from your first book?
In the first book, I talked about the nature of the narcissist more, and went into the background of, let's say, and I also used historic people in very famous narcissists, of course, who were deceased, so there wouldn't be no problem with them. And I went into psychobiographies of them and then identified the narcissist. And I did come up with some tools that could be used in working with them. However, in the second book, I really focus in on how very specifically we can heal from narcissistic abuse and change the way we lead our lives every day. That's what has to change, besides the thought patterns, the practices that we have in place every day. And this starts with sleep, for example. Mm-hmm. I find that so many people that are victimized are hypervigilant 24/7, so they're not getting any sleep, or their sleep is very interrupted. So the basics about sleep, and this is very this has been heavily researched. Our needs to be able to sleep and to rest when we have been the victim of narcissistic abuse, particularly by our parents. So this has been throughout our personal history. It's essential that we have time where we rest besides the sleep. And I know this may seem odd to a lot of human beings, especially Americans, because they pride themselves, I get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night. Well, forget it. You get the sleep that you need, and then you take these rests, and they are like true healers of the nervous system, because we're in a state of fight or flight in the sympathetic zone growing up with narcissistic mothers, fathers, siblings, and other family members. Then we're just kind of in the expectation of we're in a warfare that we are when we're in an operation. We're constantly defending ourselves against some catastrophic event, and one after the other. So the child doesn't learn that he or she can literally just let down.
Right.
And be at peace and find that place inside, or create that place inside of us that loves that child and is taking care of it and protecting it. So,
yeah. It's a different life when you get to that place where you really care, and that because society tells you, get up, get moving, trudge forward, put your head down and just keep going, going, going. And that's the exact opposite of what you need to do in order to actually heal.
That's right. And we need to eat foods that are delicious, but we want to eat balanced type meals so that throughout the day the blood sugar is balanced so that our energy remains intact throughout the day. And then the quieting as the sun, we're still brothers of the Paleolithic. So as the sun goes down, we start to quiet down and slow down.
Right.
The bright blue lights go out. Some people even use candles, but we can use certain kinds of lights where we're dimming and everything. And then we don't get all amped up with programs and especially other people that are thriving off the sympathetic nervous system that call us at 9:30 at night.
Right. Yeah, I find that this piece fascinating too with the sleep, because I've noticed that many narcissists try to prevent the people that they're feeding the most off of from actually getting sleep.
Yes, I find tremendous amounts of sleep deprivation in the clients that I speak with in phone consultations. Almost every single one of them is not sleeping, and they're being interrupted constantly by texting at night, and throughout the day it can be, and they know exactly when that person went down to be quiet. That's when they start in again with the phone calls, the texting, the demands, and the whole thing. That's when it starts.
Yeah, it's interesting because I kind of have I have this litmus test now from, your arsenal of experiences, where if I'm staying with someone, and I stay with a lot of different friends, and I'm not quite sure what the deal is with this person, they're a new person, and they find no issue whatsoever with abruptly waking up people in their home, including me, that's someone I need to be wary of. Because that's the kind of thing that would happen to me as a child. I was either being scared out of my mind by my father, or my mother was throwing a tantrum and a tirade, and does that to this day, where you literally can get no rest whatsoever. There will be stomping, screaming, slamming, calling, texting, just walking into whatever your dwelling is without notice, and that lashing out, that volcano of emotional anger that they are, the anger that they carry around, that they're just projecting out onto everyone within a 3-foot, or 3-mile radius.
Exactly. And even when they're not doing that, the vibrations of that inside the house,
yes,
all the time, go into the nervous system of that child, and they're picking that up constantly, or they're waiting for the next scream or the next, confrontation. You can be in a darkened room at night in your bed, and all of a sudden there'll be a crack of light, and you can't believe it, but this person is right there.
Yeah.
Who you maybe have just fallen asleep.
Yep.
I'm sure that's happened to many, many individuals in your audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that I've had people say, it seems like they plan it. And I said, because they are. It doesn't seem like it. They are planning this. This is how to keep you off balance.
Exactly. And they're going to do everything they can. Annihilation is a really strong word, but annihilation is there. They're certainly going to shut that child up as much as they can. And that's another series of themes that come from not just my research and reading and all of that, but it comes from the mouths of the people whom I talk to all the time. That they just didn't want me to, they took everything away from me. Everything that I had. My ideas, my inner peace, my world, everything they wanted to take, they were determined to take down. And that's planned.
Yeah, it's planned. And what I find fascinating is they have the need to feed. That's how they keep going, is by feeding off of others. They have no ability to charge their own battery. That's why they find people like extremely empathetic people that we do know how to charge our own batteries, so that we're a wonderful meal for them. But they go about destroying the very thing that they need in order to keep them fed. So it's the snake eating its own tail constantly, or Sisyphus pushing the rock up the mountain constantly. And you'd think that they would get it. Something about you needs to change. You're destroying that which you need in order to stay functioning, but they don't get it. And that the disorder piece?
Yes, that's the very damaged, from the point of view of Dr. James Masterson, who did the finest work in longitudinal studies and all of that on object relations. He talks about that highly damaged true self, while the false self in the narcissist, overt and covert, is in quotes developing all those masks and disguises that other people are fooled by. The damaged self beneath the surface is getting more and more pathological. So what happens, one of the many things that happens, is the acting out behaviors of the narcissist and the volcanic rage and the terror, because in a way they're terrorists in their own homes.
Yes.
And dirty fighters. That very much, a lot of that, or much of that, is coming from that very damaged true self. So they get ejected, or they vomit it out all the time, or they will get the child to do something at 3 a.m, or drive a car when they're drunk, or any number of things to do, and they're acting out all the chaos inside of that psyche of theirs. And yet, a lot of it is directed because they know that child is holding the truth. There's something, they don't really have insights, but they are very cunning because they're, like a bird of prey or an animal that is seeking out in the jungle something that they need. And of course, animals, that's different. I mean,
Right.
Human beings are supposed to have a moral compass.
Right.
But they don't have a well-developed conscience. So as a result, they don't think about these things. And many of them in the home, behind closed doors, have very little impulse control.
Oh my gosh. Very little. My God, my biological father flew off the handle for anything and everything. You never knew what, when, where, and was sadistic in the trying to scare the living hell out of me, reenacting scenes from horror movies and things like that. I would wake up. I would be sleeping. I had to sleep in the same bed with him, which, why was there not a clue awakened in my other parent about this? 12 years old, sleeping in the same bed with your dad. Like, what? When you know that he's perverted and there's Playboy and everything wherever? No, none of that was noticed. But the, not getting enough sleep, sleeping in the same bed, being paranoid, when is he going to try to touch me next? And then also being awakened to some kind of scene that's being created in order to scare the hell out of me because, and the setup was to go see a very scary movie that no child at the age I was should ever been taken to see, like some kind of horror movie, so that I was conditioned to then know what's coming next. And I either got to live through it or I got to throw a fit. Which way is going to be the least amount of more drama? So anyway, listeners have heard this, and I apologize, listeners, for saying this story again. But I guess what I'm trying to set here is this: what people do is they turn this blind eye and they believe the narcissist saying that you're the one that's crazy, and you are acting in response to their craziness because you're triggered, you're in trauma, you're this, you're that. And that's the most hurtful and gut-wrenching place, is when the people that you've trusted don't believe you, even if they've seen what's been going on, because they're now being manipulated. That, and that can be, I've seen people have their own children turned against them by a grandparent or the other parent or whatever, that has seen the abuse, but the narcissist ratchets up their guerrilla warfare, and they got to turn as many people against you as possible. And it's evil. That's the
It
only
is evil.
word I can come up with.
Quite often the perpetrator is by nature an aggressive personality. But that doesn't mean that everybody that is more aggressive, maybe by temperament and disposition with babies and little kids, is going to turn into one of these monstrous people. But I have found that very aggressive narcissists in particular, and they seem to have that added piece there. And then the subterfuge that they then they, of course, intimidate the other family members because they're able to do that by the lies that are believed by the family members. And, of course, no one wants the truth to get out because, in quotes, that would be too embarrassing.
Yes.
It would be a social taboo, to get anything out that would in any way destroy the family story, the legend, which is completely fictionalized about this family. In every family, there are secrets and betrayals.
Yes.
In every family of some kind. So, but that's what they do, and they go in and they just, it's like these chess pieces, one after the other member is kind of gets the disease, It's almost like they're in the same room and they have the measles and then everybody else gets it.
Right.
That kind of thing. So they're not inoculated psychologically or emotionally. And as a result, and then they are, as I said, very aggressive. They could also, there are power plays that go on. Sometimes it's over money.
Oh my God, yes.
Can be a huge factor in whether they can get another, one of the siblings of the child that is being targeted, or when there's money involved, then sometimes in some families, all bets are off because everyone heads for the trust, the wills, the money, the assets, the property, the whole 9 yards. And they will go with that, or the businesses, whatever, are owned.
That makes me just work harder to not need anything from that, from that person, that parent. I don't want to be in the will. I have removed myself from these situations with, in-laws and so on. You know what? Who have used money, oh my God, 20 years, 25 years, we heard about this money. And I finally just said, you know what? I never cared. You earned it. If it really is real, it's your money. Donate it to a charity. I don't even want it. I don't want the energy that's attached to it that you've used to manipulate people and have some kind of power over them for generations. So take me out of the will. I don't want any part of it, and good luck to you. And that, the minute I do those things, all of a sudden, wonderful doors open to me for me to never need it.
That's right. Yes. And also, part of that, too, is simplifying our lives.
Yes.
To just not need, obviously we have to get through, and it does take money of some kind and, the wherewithal to be able to lead our lives and be healthy and eat good food and make sure that we live in a safe place and all that. But we can simplify, and I mean by that too, all the people that are around us too. We can just cut through and kind of get rid. Get rid probably isn't such a friendly term, but we can make decisions on only having a certain circle of people around us whom we can trust. And it's so tough for so many children, adult children of narcissists and other family members that are narcissistic to ever trust anybody again. Why would they?
Absolutely.
They have no reason to. So we have to start over again and redefine, seeking the true self within ourselves will always tell us whom we can trust and whom we cannot. And it turns out it's a very small group of people. But I want to assure the listeners here, so many of the individuals I speak with are feeling so alone.
Right.
And it's just this deep sadness that I feel for them, that they feel this way. And I want them to know that they're not.
No.
They're not. They will find one or two individuals whom they can trust and they can call on and who will really help them with their lives. Because we need help getting through this life. It's not easy. It's a struggle. It is very, to say the least, challenging.
Absolutely.
So and the other thing that's very good, one thing I found, I was really so pleased and happy about this, and I'm sure this happens to other individuals who are helping victims of narcissistic abuse, that when they listen to podcasts or they watch videos, they feel better. They know that there's a person on the other end there that understands what they're going through. That can be very helpful to them. They may not even feel, or they'll do a lot of reading, but sometimes when they're exhausted and they just can't sleep or whatever it is, they'll listen. They'll listen, and they find that voice on the other end there really understands what they're experiencing and believes them.
Yeah. I've had many an email, and I know you have too, sometimes I listen to the same show over and over and over again in my locked bedroom because your voice helps me actually get some sleep. Now, please, we do have some listeners that are on the spectrum of narcissism very high, and they love to send in emails when I say things like that I'm some kind of narcissist. And I'm saying,
okay.
I'm not. I'm saying that, I did that too. I had my go-to people that I listened to when I needed to get sleep here. And there's something about the auditory piece to it where you just, I had a movie that I watched called Julie and Julia, and it's with, or maybe it's just called Julia. It's with Annette Bening, and she really just nails it with this young narcissistic guy. And I watched that every single night last year from Thanksgiving through Christmas. It's what helped me get to sleep. I just needed a powerful, strong female that just owns herself, because that's the journey that I was going on. And so it's that auditory piece that, because I didn't watch it, I just was hearing it as I went to sleep, and it helped tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably the most primitive and the most lasting of all of our senses. From the moment we're born, and even in the womb.
Good point.
We can hear in the womb even, and whatever's going on outside. And then, as tiny babies and all the way through our development, adulthood, and all the way through, that is the most powerful of all the senses, is the hearing sense. So that is so lovely that you found that resource and used it like that, so creatively, to help you through.
Well, people like you helped me realize that. And Andrea, who I've said a million times, Andrea Schneider, whose writing I found, and just went, oh my God, this is what I've been dealing with. And even still with figuring that out, I guess 5 years ago now, but now maybe 4 years ago now, it still was a journey to figure out where the original source of this came from. Who started this? How and how much of a generational problem is this? Tracing back through family, talking to family members that I had been cut off from for years, not of my doing. They were just, one minute they were part of my life and the next minute they weren't. And that was my parents' choice. And some of them just going, yeah, we knew there was a problem even then, and there was nothing really that we could do about it. And we just hoped that one day you'd come to this awareness. And
oh my God,
it's fascinating when you look at the family dynamics and how many branches of the tree is this disorder sitting on throughout someone's life and the history of their family.
Well, there is a compulsion to repeat, and very much generational. And we ask ourselves why we repeat the same destructive emotional, psychological, mental patterns year after year, decade after decade, and then generation after generation, and how that happens. But the negative effects, for example, of dealing with a narcissist help explain this repetitive cycle. So, and as I say, part of it is not allowing the secrets to come out.
Right.
Or what happened behind those closed doors every night, every day. What was really going on? Because when we're children, we have to survive. So we go along. We have to go along if we're 2 or 3 years old. What are we supposed to do? Go outside at 3 a.m. and try to ask a neighbor if they can help us?
Right.
We can't do that, so we have to go along with this. And then there's this compulsion on the part of many families to always look good, the image of the family.
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't whisper what was really going on inside this house. Children would even be threatened. Don't you dare say a word. Or one family member to the other, don't ever tell anybody about what I said or what I did or what I'm thinking or feeling. That kind of thing terrorizes the child to silence. And then that creates the trauma, and that in turn, rather than, like you say, that you have done and do, going to the root of the trauma and finding out where the source of that river is. Most individuals can't do that. They're not strong enough to do that. So they just kind of let the wave pass over and over and over and over, and then, in quotes, forget.
Yes.
And some children do forget. They forget huge amounts of their childhoods. They repress it.
Yeah.
And that happens to a lot of people. And then you have, like I said, these more powerful personalities, particularly the narcissist, where they are intimidating everyone all the time, or they're rewarding them for their silence.
Yes. I want to make sure people understand too, intimidating can be covert and overt. Intimidation doesn't mean it's always someone that's in your face doing, things that are loud and whatever. It can be extremely covert where you just almost miss it. It's whispers, it's speaking behind closed doors, it's behavior, it's gaslighting, and it can also be a tirade, and it can be one or the other. One person can fly into a rage and then also be covertly manipulating things behind the scenes. So it's, so many people try to put this into a box, and I'm like, well, that's not how it works. It's on a spectrum, and every person's situation has its own unique flavor.
Exactly. It can even be a look, or a particular look, or different sets of looks, or from across the room. It also can just be an energy shift.
Yes.
That the child will experience, or the adult child will feel again. And you try to explain an energy shift to most people, and they're going to say, "What? What are you talking about? Your imagination is overactive."
Oh yeah, you're making up stories.
They're doing that again. You're just a real problem in this family.
Yeah.
You're causing other people around us distress. we don't behave that way around here. And so they mute everything, and then they get away with convincing the other members of the family that this is not done, and there's something wrong with this one member. So often I am running into these individuals who are isolated in fairly large families. I mean, even with 3 or 4 children, you have the one person that knows exactly what's going on, what happened to them, what's happening to the other members of the family, what's going on with the mother and the father, and then everyone else is chiming in with the rest of the family, so they're the odd person out. And they have one hell of a time getting through their lives as children, and then if trauma can be revisited on us depending on what's going on in our lives. It will then come back in when we're re-traumatized, let's say by some kind of an event. It can be a physical illness. It can be something that happens that's shocking and horrendous to us. It can be a relationship that doesn't work. It can be a business situation, any number of things that's traumatic. And then what happens is then the trauma that was there that is unresolved bounces us back to the other trauma. So we've got both of those things are all both working. They work together. What was unresolved then comes up.
Right.
Comes up. And it is, the word opportunity is awful when I think about ghastly, but it is the opportunity. The person that recognizes that has pure gold in their hands when they know that, because if they follow that thread, they will follow it back to the source. And when they get to that source, that is the beginning of their liberation.
Oh, absolutely. I have a gentleman by the name of Jamie Grace who is a therapist in Portugal, and he wrote an article about surviving a narcissistic mother, and he's talked about that. We talked about that on a show. This feels awful. Kristin, it feels awful. But this is actually the best thing that could have ever happened. You're finally going to get to be you. And I was like, okay, I'll trust you. I'm going to turn that movie on again.
Yeah, let's go for the movie, huh? Yeah. Well, the other piece here, too, there's so much to it. It's just incredible that the child never learned how to self-soothe or comfort herself or himself. There was nothing about that. So the adult now goes back and learns how to comfort, self-comforting. That is one of the most important things. Like, what do I need to do right now to comfort myself?
Absolutely. And it's odd to be an adult and figuring out and realizing that you really have no idea. You don't. I've done some work with a brilliant nutritionist, and I've read about self-soothing and that kind of thing. And it has been through her that I have become much more aware of asking that question of myself, and also sharing that with people that I know and also with clients. And it didn't occur to them to ask that question because it wasn't part of their repertoire. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a therapist now that says, I want you to just keep asking yourself, do you really feel you have the right to self-care? My goodness. And I'm like, wow, I have to, because it's not, got my nails done or I had a massage or no. This is very, very, those are lovely things, mind you, but this is very, very different. This is, am I thinking self-care thoughts? Am I practicing self-care in terms of enough rest, in terms of not picking up that 100th needy person that has to talk to only you because they won't get their ass to their own therapist? I mean, it's just that kind of thing. Every choice all day long that you've learned to give everybody else your time, where you start saying, I'm not going to do that. I don't feel like doing that. I'm not going to pick up that call, or I'm not going to listen to that person, or I'm not going to go see that movie, or I'm not going to think that thought. I mean, I find myself even changing the way that I say words so that they're much more empowering about myself and what I'm doing and my goals. It goes down to that level. And I think you're living in so much trauma that you don't even have the wherewithal to sort of dig that granularly, if I'm making up a word, to the core of practicing self-care.
That's right. So it's actually a voyage of discovery.
Yes.
Because you don't know we don't know the territory of that. So it's a new world that opens up. And then I noticed too, we can go back to the old way very quickly.
Yes.
Let's go back in the bunker. Bunker time. That's what's so familiar. You know, when the grenades are flying, we're going back there. So there's a relearning that takes place, and it's really lovely when it starts to take hold more. And when we can say no to certain people and no to certain things that we don't want to think about, that we don't need to think about, or we don't need to do. And then what is the comforting mechanism? What works for one person does not work for another. So even just the simplest things, what do I need to listen to right now? Whose voice? What helps me? What music? What do I need? I was talking to someone the other day, and they wear clothing that's all natural fabrics because they're very aware of the material that they have on.
Mm.
And this is not a narcissistic person. This is someone that really understands that self-care, that self-comforting aspect. And so they might like, just cotton, or maybe wools, or whatever it is, or maybe a variety of things. And what do I have on, too? Like some people wear like some kind of a chain or something that has a meaningful object on it, where they don't, they have a sense of their identity by wearing that. And then what do we, at night when we're sleeping, do we have something that we have with us?
Mm.
A certain kind of a pillow even that has a kind of a cover on it, that maybe a silk cover or a cotton cover or something like that. What are the rituals and how do we allow ourselves, and also don't rush.
Yeah.
We don't have to run away because there's no one there that's going to harm us, like there was so long ago. So the pace gets slower.
Well, I noticed that even
we
when
can
you're
quicken
talking.
the pace.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
I notice even when you're talking, you talk much more slowly than I do.
Oh.
Enunciating every word, and it's a rhythm. It's a rhythm that's healthy instead of all the time.
Yeah. Well, we're learning always, hopefully, and I find that slowing part. One of the ways that's been, not everybody can do this because it can cost money and be expensive, but it's just an example. One of the ways to participate in the parasympathetic calming part of the nervous system is through acupuncture.
Mm.
And that, if it's a really good, and they have to be excellent, of course, in every single way, but they have to be given to be a healer. And that right away calms the nervous system. And of course, very familiar with this too, is different kinds of breathing.
Yes.
That involves the diaphragm. When we breathe through the nose, and we can even put one of our hands on the diaphragm and feel that expanding, then holding at the top and breathing out slowly through the mouth, with the exhalation being longer than the inhalation, we're activating that recovering, healing part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic. So this is going, and then I even talk to myself about parasympathetic people.
Hmm.
There's health food store that I go to, and there's a man behind the counter there that is, taking people's orders and that kind of thing. And he's a true empath and truly an evolved person spiritually. He's a real thing. When you experience him face to face, even from a distance, you can feel the beauty of that soul inside of him. And he reaches your heart. And you are healed by that presence. It almost brings you to tears. And this is a person that's had a very tough life. He does meditate very regularly, but he doesn't brag about it or anything like that. But the soul, that man is just so. I think I'll go in there. I think I want a dose of that now. And every time I get it, it's just so wonderful.
I hear you. I know there are people like that in my life too, and they're my lovely friends. It's so nice to realize you aren't alone, and to develop your tribe, and to know that first of all, you have to learn how to ask for help, because we're so used to just having to deal with stuff on our own. So we tend to live without in many ways and in many areas, but to actually be able to ask people for help without feeling guilty, or that you're a burden, or that you're asking for too much, and to have your friends constantly remind you, hell yeah, I'll do that for you, of course I will. Mm-hmm. And you go, oh, right. This is how friends behave. Gotcha. There's no strings attached to their gift giving of their time. I'm not going to receive backlash later for what for what someone gave me that I didn't even ask for, or whatever, all the ways that you get manipulated by these people. It's lovely to, finally experience that.
That's right. There's a very old song with beautiful, the Gershwins wrote, "Someone to Watch Over Me." Mm. And that's what you just said. It has a lot to do with that. And I also get the image of kind of being able to get into a very comfortable chair with the feet up, and just the right temperature in the air, and just kind of close our eyes and know that we can lean against that, just like we can lean against that person, and they're not going to get tired. They're not going to get worn out from our telling our story 15,000 times.
Right.
They're going to take it in each time as if we're telling it for the first time.
Right.
They're ever ready to do that. They don't wear out. They don't get angry. They don't project. Yes, they're human and they have flaws, but we know we can depend on them.
Absolutely. Oh, well, that we could talk forever. I want to make sure everyone knows that that your website is thenarcissistinyourlife.com, and your second book, Discovering Your True Self, Recovering and Healing After the Narcissist by Linda Martinez-Lewi, is available on Amazon. And that you also wrote Freeing Yourself from the Narcissist in Your Life, which I gobbled up both of those like the minute that I found them. So.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Recovering and Healing After the Narcissist is an ebook, but you can get the app easily, and it's globally distributed. So, and I'm working on another book on the covert narcissist.
Good.
And I'm about halfway through that one. So I'm looking forward to finishing that and getting it out, because, boy, these are popping up all over the place.
It's suddenly the hot topic. Gee, I wonder why.
Oh, my.
That's a whole other show.
That's another show, which we can do.
Absolutely.
Whenever the time comes. But, yes, and I enjoy the podcasting very, very much. I love doing it. And I'm just so thankful, too, to what I hear back from individuals that listen.
Absolutely.
And I've just enjoyed doing this so much with you, Kristin. Mm-hmm. Just lovely.
Thank you. Stay on for a minute. I'm going to say thank you to our listeners for another edition of Mental Health News Radio.
Without good intentions, I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps, or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song, Cordial, for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial. Sometimes in you I can fight it.
Good boy.
Welcome to the Total Wireless Store, where total confidence awaits.
I need to keep up with my teens this summer without sweating high cell phone bills.
Don't worry, you got this with Total Wireless. We have plans to fit all your family's needs starting at just $25 on the nation's best 4G LTE network.
I won't miss a thing.
Now you can focus on the important stuff, like arguing about curfew.
Discover the Total Wireless stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Now open in New York. Refer to the latest terms and conditions of service at totalwireless.com.